Well, it was only a matter of time before I eventually jumped on the bandwagon, and I've avoided this topic long enough. I haven't uploaded in a month, and it was only a matter of time before I eventually just talked about this show at some point. Velma is a 2023 HBO Max show that serves as a prequel spin-off to the Scooby-Doo franchise. The show is an origin story that focuses on Velma. Oh, and the other Mystery Inc. members. Well, everyone except for that talking dog. But who cares about him, am I right?
This is like making Tom and Jerry, but no Jerry. Just Tom. I shouldn't give them ideas.
Ever since its release, this show has been getting a lot of flack. People have been saying that it's a terrible show that disrespects the IP, to the point where it's getting low reviews everywhere. It's so bad that many YouTubers have decided not to watch the rest of the season because of how bad the first 2 episodes were.
Now, you might be wondering if I'm going to watch the rest of this season so I can give it a fuller review by the end. And the answer to that is, fuck off! Velma isn't worth even a moment more of my time, or anyone else's for that matter.
And you're probably wondering why I didn't talk about the show earlier instead of later. Well, that's because, like Just Stop and Cartoon She, I wanted to watch every single episode before I gave my opinion on the show.
Yep, get it all out now.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not like those punk-ass YouTubers that just watched the first 2 episodes and gave up. I wanted to watch every single episode because I am a psychopath and I don't care about my well-being.
Take me to a hospital.
Okay, it's not just that. There are 2 reasons why I'm doing this. Number 1, I wouldn't be doing my job correctly. You see, I've been doing these ranking videos recently, and if I talk about the first 2 episodes and that's it, I feel like someone would point out, "Oh, you watched every episode of Family Guy, American Dad, South Park, Regular Show, and Gumball, but you won't watch every episode of Velma?" So because I watched every single episode of those shows, I feel like I should watch every single episode of this show. Number 2, I am a former fan of Scooby-Doo. I used to love Scooby-Doo when I was younger. I couldn't get enough of it. I loved Fred, Velma, Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby. I watched every single cartoon I could get my hands on. The last Scooby-Doo related media I watched was Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, and it was really good. Honestly, you should give that show a watch instead of this piece of garbage. So when I first saw the trailer for this show...
If there is one thing the internet agrees on, it's that you should never change anything ever. I hope you die. Sincerely, Velma. Well, at least Judy's still white.
Do you like solving mysteries?
Yeah, but I'm actually much more three-dimensional than that.
That's cringe! Holy shit, that's bad.
Needless to say, it struck a chord with me. It's already not a good look that they decided to race swap the characters for no justifiable reason, but it's also doing a self-referential comedy, which is so overdone at this point. So I decided when the show's first season came out, I would give it a thorough ass whooping. This video will work like my ranking videos. I'm gonna go over every single episode, then I'll discuss why this show is so terrible in my opinion. So get your weed and get your Scooby snacks, because I'm watching HBO Max's Velma. This should be fun.
Sure. Normally, origin stories are about tall, handsome guys struggling with the burden of being handed even more power. And if they are about girls, it's usually like, hey, what made this hot chick go crazy?
Okay, who wrote this? Oh, right.
Ugh. This school sucks.
Okay, we're only 1 minute into this episode, and we already have a sex joke. Wonderful. And we have pointless nudity of minors. Oh god, this video is gonna get age restricted. I can just tell. A classmate gets murdered and stuffed in Velma's locker. So Velma has to find out who the killer is within 24 hours, and if she doesn't, she'll go to jail because she's the likely suspect.
Unfortunately, we're not done here, Velma. You're a suspect in Brenda's murder. Now sit.
I honestly don't blame them. I mean, this is the same girl that hit Daphne with a cane. What? You think I'm joking? I'm not. Take a look for yourself.
guess I didn't try hard enough.
After getting information from her friend Norville and her ex-best friend Daphne, she concludes that Fred committed the murder. It's clear that this show is going for a more self-referential dark comedy, kind of in the vein of Rick and Morty. Except this show does it a lot. Like, a lot.
And how do you feel about race-blind casting, Daphne?
Well, as an Asian woman, I think it's cool.
See, now if this was a show, it'd be super hot if you two kissed.
Wow, after hearing that, I not only feel emotionally hooked, I understand the stakes of your journey, Velma.
I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shows. Oh, sorry I'm not a drunk on the verge of losing custody like every other woman solving murders these days.
Hello? That's not funny!
I swear to God, you can't go a single second without a character making a pop culture reference, talking about tropes, talking about dicks, breaking the fourth wall, mentioning hashtags, making fun of white people. You get the point. Speaking of characters, I guess we should talk about the characters we have here. And oh my God, they are more one-dimensional than the characters they're based on. Let's start with Velma, who is such an unlikable twat, which is fitting considering she's modeled after Mindy Kaling. Throughout the episode, she acts like such an arrogant, unlikable narcissist, and yet for some reason, the show is portraying her as a likable underdog we should support. Because throughout the episode, she gets called a weirdo by her father, and she gets called a loser by her classmates. Kind of like Luz from the Owl House or Timmy from the Fairly OddParents, or even Gumball from the Amazing World of Gumball. But there's one thing that these characters are that Velma isn't. It's likable. Say what you will about them, but the writers took time to make these characters likable, despite their flaws. Velma is so unlikable to the point where I don't want to follow her story. I think they were trying to go for a Daria-like character, but I like Daria more than Velma. She has much more likable traits than this bitch. Oh, I forgot to mention she's dealing with the disappearance of her mother, and she frequently has panic attacks and hallucinations, which is another reason why we should root for her.
Oh well, boo-hoo-hoo-hoo for you.
Sorry, it doesn't work like that. Just because you have a sad backstory doesn't mean you can get away with being a narcissistic twat. Wait a second. Jesus Christ, this is The Last of Us Part 2 all over again. You have an unlikable that serves as our main protagonist, and despite this character doing horrible stuff, and just genuinely being an insufferable asshole to deal with, the narrative still wants you to like and root for them, and if you don't do that, you hate strong women. Next up, you've got Norville. He's a typical nerd who doesn't do drugs. Seriously, he wants to let you know personally that he doesn't like drugs.
I think it has something to do with drugs, which I hate.
What a moron.
Also, he has a crush on Velma. Wonderful. We have another simp that stands in my presence. But unlike the others, he confesses his feelings for Velma while she's having a panic attack. Poor timing, man. Poor timing. And I thought Mordecai breaking up with CJ at Muscle Man's wedding was embarrassing. And what makes it horrible is that Velma laughs at his confession.
Like you.
Wait, what? No, you don't. You're like a brother to me. That's hilarious.
Jeez, what a bitch.
Okay, I get this is overdone at this point, but I just want to say that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish handles panic attacks way better. They portray panic attacks with more respect than this shit heap. And that's just his whole thing for the next 2 episodes. He just simps over Velma even though she's not interested. And also, you guys are just fucking idiots for making Shaggy black. And let me just say, I have nothing against black representation. I only like it when it's done correctly, like Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse. But this ain't it, Chief. Daphne is the typical mean girl archetype who has a complicated relationship with Velma, as they used to be best friends before she ditched her to hang out with the popular girls. And in this episode in particular, Daphne and Velma act so nasty and spiteful towards each other.
Velma? What the hell? You almost killed me.
Guess I didn't try hard enough.
In fact, she was such a rare friend. She made my previous so-called best friend look like a piece of crap. Especially now that I know she's the main suspect in Brenda's murder.
I need you to remember this because this will be important for the next episode. And she's in a relationship with Fred. But that won't last long, I'll tell you. Also, she's Asian for no reason at all. And last but certainly not least, there's Fred. And Jesus Christ, out of all the characters, they did him dirty. He's a popular rich kid who's dealing with daddy issues and late puberty. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like his character has potential. But he just acts like a goddamn idiot. And it's interesting how out of the main characters, he's the one that gets treated like a joke, which I find extremely fascinating. But I'll expand on this in the next episode. There are other characters like Velma's dad, Sophie the waitress he slept with, Daphne's two moms, who are played by Jane Lynch and Wanda Sykes for no reason, but they don't get much focus. So the jokes suck, the characters are flat and unlikable, there's needless gore in here for no reason at all, and the dialogue is repetitive and awful.
Normally, origin stories are about tall, handsome guys struggling with the burden of being handed even more power.
Sex sells, and in today's overcrowded market, you need a hook.
The only hook a good show ever needs is good storytelling. I mean, not to oversimplify a thorny issue, but everyone loves it when white people play Jesus or a professional boxer.
See, now if this was a show, it'd be super hot if you two kissed.
I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shows.
And yeah, normally in pop culture, when a slutty girl is murdered, we're all a little like, well, maybe she deserved it.
Wow, after hearing that, I not only feel emotionally hooked, I understand the stakes of your journey, Velma.
On TV shows, the malt shop owner is always a friendly black man or a spicy and meatball Italian. Oh, sorry I'm not a drunk on the verge of losing custody like every other woman solving murders these days.
Shut up! Shut your fucking mouth, you're so annoying. Oh my god.
Is there anything of quality so far? Well, I do like the animation, particularly when Velma has her panic attacks. It's nicely done. But that's only one good thing. Everything else sucks. You guys better pick it up in the next episode.
If I ever even think about getting into 420 culture, or especially 420 related humor, kill me. You know what 420 is, right?
Yeah, it's code for adults who still watch cartoons.
Shut up! Shut your fucking mouth, you're so annoying. Oh my god.
Oh my god, this joke is not fucking funny. Why do you insist on stopping the music for it? They did the same thing in the trailer.
You know what 420 is, right?
Yeah, it's code for adults who still watch cartoons.
Shut up. It's crazy how, like, even performing as another character, like, all you can see is just absolute narcissism. Like...
After Velma accuses Fred of being the murderer, he gets put on trial, so Velma's father decides to be his lawyer. While that's going on, Velma's trying to get her mother's cold case file from Daphne, but she'll only give it to her if she coughs up $500. But when she can't get it, Daphne proposes a different idea. If she helps her sell some drugs, she'll get the file. And there's a side plot of Norville trying to get $500 to give to Velma, which is pointless because Velma's working for Daphne, so...
Exactly. I spit truth without a filter, like every comedian before #MeToo.
This episode is significantly worse than the last one. They're still keeping up with the needless pop culture references and the atrocious dialogue.
You know what 420 is, right?
Yeah, it's code for adults who still watch cartoons.
Wait. In teen movies, whenever a girl needs money, a guy sells something and then blackmails the girl into dating him for it.
Exactly. I spit truth without a filter, like every comedian before #MeToo.
But if the kids in every teen show ever can get through a brush with a deranged serial killer, so can I. According to TV, it's morally okay to deal drugs if your life is just kinda crappy. Like, your kid's sick, you're a widow with a mortgage.
Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up!
but I think the characters are at their absolute worst. Specifically with Norville and Fred. Norville has the idea to emotionally manipulate Velma into going out with him, which is a pretty shitty thing of him to do. And as for Fred, look how they massacred my boy. Just play the clips.
Are you trying to choke me to death? You forgot Cuddies. Ah, crap, I'm all syrupy. Bathies!
Hello, friends. My name is Fred. What's yours?
You see what I mean when I say they treat Fred like a total idiot in this show? It's embarrassing and it's pathetic. And guess what? The episode ends with him going to jail because he doesn't want to go out like a bitch. And as for Velma and Daphne, they suddenly act like they're a team in this episode.
I'm the brains of this operation. You're just the look, style, and effortless charm.
We do make a good team, don't we?
You gotta be kidding me.
And I just don't buy it in the slightest. Velma is still an unlikable bitch. But as for Daphne, it turns out she sells drugs at the school, and her reasoning for selling drugs is that she wants to use the money that she's making so she can find her biological parents. But then the episode ruins this interesting concept by showing that Daphne and Velma have feelings for each other. Which, I'm sorry, but I don't think that this is genuine in the slightest. You can't go from these two hating each other one minute to them loving and crushing on each other the next. If this show wants to be like Arcane, The Owl House, Harley Quinn, Adventure Time, or even Steven Universe with its LGBT representation, it needs to feel natural and genuine. You need to develop Daphne and Velma's relationship throughout the season. That's what these other shows did, and guess what? They were praised for it. It's pretty clear you're doing this for pandering purposes, and quite frankly, that's fucking disgraceful. Especially since the shows I've mentioned have handled LGBT representation very well. You're just shitting all over it with this terrible pairing. And it's concerning that some people think that this is a good pairing.
Velma and Daphne are together.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
It's the very definition of a toxic relationship. And even if you want to say that this is a healthy relationship, did you forget the fact that Velma whacked Daphne with a cane, or that Daphne constantly treats Velma like shit? Because I didn't forget that.
Velma? What the hell? You almost killed me!
Guess I didn't try hard enough.
In fact, she was such a rare friend. She made my previous so-called best friend look like a piece of crap. Especially now that I know she's the main suspect in Brenda's murder.
Just to offer my sincerest condolences for the loss of your more popular friends that you picked over me.
I know you think I'm a huge bitch who ditched you to be cool.
What? That's so not true.
You might have more success with this if you went in just a little less judgy.
Wait, I'm judgy? You would say something like that.
You want your mom's cold case file, right?
Alright, that was episode 2. And it can only go downhill from here. And before we go on, can you please stop with the dick jokes?
Fred's a rich white guy with a tiny dong. He did it. The murders. Obviously, it's the murders.
It's not small, it's scared.
But also that he was just another entitled rich guy who might kill someone because he has a tiny dong. Norville.
After getting the file, Velma tries to ask Fred about her mother because the last place she was spotted was near his house. But she ends up getting kicked out because of her panic attacks, which is again treated like a joke.
Why deprive ourselves that knowledge?
Oh my god, that was hilarious. Thank you, Norville.
What a bitch.
So for Norville's plot, he spends the entire episode trying to get information out of Fred. But then he ends up becoming a therapist to all the prisoners. And while that's going on, Coolsville High is hosting a women's self-defense tournament.
I am not vulnerable. No one will ever hurt me.
God, they're really on the nose with this, aren't they? And this sucks because things between Daphne and Velma are complicated to say the least. This episode isn't good either. Once again, they treat anxiety like a joke, we get more repetitive dialogue that isn't funny in the slightest, And there's no humorous moments here. Well, except for one.
Oh no.
I don't like the side plots, and I don't like the main plot either. Aside from the fact that they're forcing a "women are so strong" message, they're still forcing in Daphne x Velma, which I don't care for because I don't like this incarnation of Daphne or Velma for that matter. In fact, this episode gives us more reasons why they're not suited to be a couple. Daphne is so shallow to the point where she kicks Velma in the face during practice, which is pretty goddamn funny if you ask me.
Oh no.
And Velma is such a bitch that she takes Daphne's journal and reads it to everyone in the crowd. They try to excuse this in the end by saying that they don't want to lose each other again, but that still doesn't make anything they do okay. And although this episode ends with them being friends, it's clear to a monkey that they still have feelings for each other. And I still stand by the opinion that this is the very definition of a terrible relationship that nobody should root for. And also, wasn't Fred and Daphne in a relationship at one point?
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Also, Fred broke out of prison. And for those wondering why I'm not talking about the mystery itself, it's because it takes a backseat to all of this filler bullshit. This is another terrible episode. Moving on.
Now, are there any more questions?
Yeah, I have one. How come no one ever cared this much about my missing mom?
You need to shut the fuck up!
Another girl gets killed. Honestly, when they kill these characters off, they're doing them a favor. Anyway, the sheriff concludes that the killer is going after attractive girls, so Velma offers to rank which girls are most likely to get killed. Eventually, this branches into Fred's plot, where he's left to do the ranking, but then they drop this entirely, and he learns to appreciate a woman's inner beauty after reading The Feminine Mystique. And guess what? After learning to appreciate a woman's inner beauty, he starts to simp for Velma too. These simps are driving me through the goddamn wall. Anyway, back to Velma's plot. She teams up with the popular girls and attempts to mask their beauty so they don't get killed. And as for Daphne, she tries to find some clues about her parents' disappearance with the help of Norville, who's writing some notes on Daphne's characteristics so he can impress Velma.
SMH, dude. SMH.
Dude, just drop it. It's not gonna happen. I don't like this episode that much either. The main plot with Velma isn't interesting because they try to give a commentary on misogyny, which is really out of place in this show. And trust me, this isn't the only example. Fred simping for Velma isn't good either, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Why would he fall for Velma? The whole purpose of the book is that you're supposed to see the inner beauty of a woman, right? So why would he fall for her? She's ugly inside and out. And I'm not the only one that thinks so. So yeah, their plots suck, but at least Norville and Daphne's plot is semi-decent, as they try to work together to find some clues on her parents' disappearance using the town's history with crystals. Get it? 'Cause it's Crystal Cove? Oh, and guess what? Velma is 100% gay. She doesn't need a man. Because after Fred tries to ask her out, she just considers him gross now.
Well, I also prefer inner beauty. And yes, up until right now, I found you irresistible. But now I just find you gross.
I would say the most interesting part about this episode is Daphne looking for her parents, because honestly, I don't give a shit about Velma trying to find her mother anymore. Just get it over with and get the hell out of my sight.
Dad, okay, Norville, I understand that for some reason, you've chosen Gigi, a beautiful girl who puts out, over your angry friend, but I have a clue about my mom, and I can't research it without you. Please.
And you wonder why he's been ghosting you. Because you only see him as your personal lapdog. You fucking bitch.
You abandoned me.
You weren't abandoned, Daphne. Your mom stole you from us.
What?
How dare you bring Captain Caveman into this? Velma discovers more clues about her mother's disappearance, more specifically that she was looking for a mad scientist before she went missing. And instead of doing this by herself, she needs Norville's help because in case she gets one of her panic attacks, she can laugh at his love confessions.
You're a bitch.
But Norville's ghosting her because he's dating a girl named Gigi. She's one of the popular girls from the last episode that I kind of forgot to mention. So to break up their seemingly healthy relationship,
And if I win, Norville does whatever I say forever.
And do I get to weigh in?
No!
Oh, shit.
Velma hosts a band party in the hopes of getting Norville back. Also, Fred tags along with Velma for no reason other than he wants to prove that he's a male feminist.
Check it out. And as if this isn't enough, I will also win your heart by proving I am a helpful ally, sister.
Guess what? That's the joke.
That's not funny!
And while all of this is going on, Daphne finds out that her biological family are a bunch of Captain Caveman people that live in a sewer. Yeah, I don't know. Also, the whole town has a curfew to make sure no one gets killed. Just wanted to let you know. This is another episode that shows how terrible Velma is, breaking up Norville's relationship for her own selfish gain because Fred isn't helping her with her panic attacks.
I would, but all I can think of right now is the gender pay gap. Is it funny? Women make 20% less than men, and women of color even less? I can't stop laughing. What the
See? Isn't it funny that he's a male feminist now?
Of course! Really? No.
As for Daphne, I would say her plot is still relatively interesting, especially with her realizing that her parents were in a gang called the Crystal Mines Gang. But sadly, that doesn't get much development, because we're focusing on Velma hosting this shitty party just so she can have Norville to herself.
What a fucking bitch.
Which is really contradictory, given the fact that from the previous 4 episodes I've seen, she's constantly annoyed with his very presence. The only thing worth noting is that the crazy scientist that Velma's mom tried looking for is Norville's grandmother. So, there's that. Also, there's a moment where Velma concludes that Norville is a good person because he tried risking his life for her, Fred, and Gigi when they almost got cornered by the cops.
Wow, Norville. You're not just a better friend than I am. You're a better person.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
I'm sorry, I just can't take this seriously. The only funny thing that happened in this episode was seeing Velma get hit by a car. Other than that, crappy episode. Moving on.
But also, Jinkies is written in your mother's handwriting. She was just here.
Jinkies!
Okay, now you're totally trying to make it a thing.
Can you guys stop doing this? We don't need to know the origins of every single thing about a character, especially when it comes to their fucking catchphrase. Norville's mother, who's the principal by the way, tells Velma everything about the mad scientist that was mentioned in the last episode. It turns out she was working on a project called Special Covert Operation Brain Initiative, or Scooby for short.
Scooby? And wait, what did Scooby do?
These dipshit writers really thought they were so clever. Also, it's Scooby with a Y, not an I, you dumb fucks. Before the principal can tell Velma how this project is connected to her mother, she ends up hallucinating again, and concludes that she needs to bond with her father in order to get rid of these hallucinations once and for all. You know what? Since I don't care about Velma or her father, this whole bonding montage was completely pointless. And what do you know, the bonding montage was completely pointless because her father was using the time they had together to get away from babysitting.
Well, who didn't see that coming?
Eventually, Velma forces Norville's parents to tell her the information she needs, and when she gets it, she meets up with Fred to go to his place because the mad scientist's lab is under his house.
See this face? Yes? This is my not giving a face.
Let's just get to the other plots. Daphne starts to bond with her biological parents only to realize that they were using her this whole time, which leads her to appreciate her adoptive family. You know what? Despite this being predictable, it's honestly the best plot out of these three. Which, I know that's not saying much, but...
Hey, I'll take what I can get.
This is a quick edit. After doing further research, it turns out that this plot was stolen from Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. How do I know this? Cartoon She, take it away.
Daphne's entire plotline involving her birth parents being criminals that only want to use her for treasure and don't care about her is copied note for a goddamn note from Fred's plotline involving his parents in Mystery Incorporated. I am not exaggerating either. Even the reveal that their adoptive parents care about them more is the same, and even the treasure involved is the same. You got the crystal sarcophagus in Mystery Incorporated and then the crystal mines in Velma. It's legitimately note for note.
So yeah, that positive I just gave you, I'm taking it away now. And as for Norville's plot, you remember when Shoe Head said this in her Velma video?
They made Shaggy a simp? Look what they've done to my boy!
So for his side plot, he tries to prove that he's not a beta male, which results in his girlfriend ending up in the hospital because he didn't respond to her texts.
Well, who didn't see that coming?
I will admit, this episode is significantly better than the last one, because there were some moments that I thought were pretty decent. But that mostly stems from Daphne's plot. Velma's plot could have worked, but as I said before, I don't care about Velma or her father, so the whole bonding montage they have just didn't work for me. And Norville's plot was stupid and unfunny. But back to Velma's plot, there's one thing worth noting. She no longer has any hallucinations or panic attacks because all her father had to tell her was that he believed in her.
It's over. I know my dad believes me.
Good. Now you fuckfaces can no longer make fun of panic attacks. Next one.
Holy crap! No wonder men are so desperate to hold onto their power. This is the easiest shit ever.
Just fuck off.
God, hearing this annoying twat's voice gives me a migraine. Which I know isn't saying much given the fact that my voice is annoying too, but... Shut up. After she gets over her hallucinations, Velma continues her investigations. While she's doing that, the town's curfew gets lifted because of an annual Crystal Cove Fog Fest. And get ready for some fog jokes, because hoo boy, there's plenty of them in this episode.
So either you find a way to come home with that Fog King crown.
I have to be Fog King.
Excuse me? Wait, you said Fog King, not
You really think you can beat me for Fog King?
Yes, I do. You're gonna be a big Fog King loser. Guys.
I can't say I'm offended by it. It's just not funny. It's like, where's the fucking joke? You know? Like, give me a joke in there.
Velma goes there because she gets a clue from the Jinkies note she found and comes to the conclusion that the serial killer might be there.
Oh, how convenient!
She tries to go with Daphne, but Daphne hates her because of how much she's been ignoring her lately. So she goes with Fred, who's also going to Fogfest because his parents pressured him to do so. And Norville's there too because he tries to use this as an opportunity to win Gigi back. Back to Velma for a second. Because Daphne ditched her, she ends up dressing up like a guy to get in. And then she starts acting like a guy for a little bit. Which isn't funny. There were some hee-hee moments, but it's just... I don't fucking know, leave me alone. I give this episode credit that it justifies why all the characters are in one place. And out of all the characters, I was kind of rooting for Fred. Yes, the selfish rich boy with a tiny... I ended up rooting for him because, while Velma turns into a dude, she's still a dick. I'll get into that later. Daphne is horny for Velma, and Norville's a dick too. Yes, the only semi-decent character transforms into a dick as well. It starts with him wanting to win Gigi back, but then he turns into an asshole that wants to win Fogfest.
Okay, this is bad, but we can still win. Gigi, do you trust me?
No, not at all.
And why would you? I wrapped your self-worth up in a crown and failed to deliver it.
Wow, what an asshole.
And like always, Velma's plot was the worst part of the episode, as it goes from wanting to find the serial killer 1 minute to her turning into a dude and taking advantage of the fact that she's a dude the next. And it's pretty annoying that they're saying the reason why no one listens to Velma is because she's a woman, even though that's not the case at all. The reason why no one listens to Velma is because she's an unlikable, selfish bitch that constantly pushes everyone away from her. Case in point, Norville and Daphne. She treats them like shit and she wonders why no one wants to be around her. The most important thing to note with this plot is that Velma and Daphne rekindle their relationship. Again. Also, I need to mention that men don't have it easier than women, especially in this day and age. Anytime our past behavior gets brought up, or if we get hit with false accusations, our whole lives get destroyed right there on the spot. But even with that aside, both genders have their drawbacks, and it's annoying that this show is taking the stance that, oh, men have it significantly better than women, which is a stupid position to take. And as a whole, this episode doesn't really add much, and it doesn't develop the main plot in any way. I mean, I did like that Scooby-Doo reference, but that's about it. And even then, other shows have done it way better. Before we move on, I just want to say, stop fucking shoving in social commentary into this show. This isn't South Park.
Daphne!
Velma, can you help me find Fred? He's missing, and I know your people are great at tracking.
Sorry, I'm busy, and I've told you I'm not Navajo. Let's go, Daph.
You know, every time I think Velma is one step closer to being a decent character, she just goes back to being a bitch again. Okay, this episode will be a little hard to talk about because they decided to do flashbacks instead of just playing the episode regularly.
But wouldn't you agree that the strongest use of flashbacks on TV is when one character's flashback is intercut with another's to eventually combine in the present storyline?
You're saying if this was a flashback in your point of view, in order for it to be earned, we'd have to cut to, I don't know, Fred?
Exactly.
I like it when they use a title card with the character's name when they cut to a different flashback.
I'm so tired. I'm so tired of all of this.
The episode begins with Velma, Daphne, Norville, and Gigi trapped in a hole. This is where the flashbacks come into play. Starting with Velma's plot, it seems her and Daphne are back to being friends again, and they plan on going to the Mount Crystal Woods to find the serial killer. But Daphne attempts to ditch Velma so she can hang out with Olive. Is that her name? Yeah, okay, her name is Olive, which is a stupid fucking name. So because of this, Velma starts to become possessive, to the point where she tricks Daphne into believing that she has her hallucinations and panic attacks again. I'll explain later.
Velma, what's happening?
I'm having a deadly hallucination!
I thought those were over!
Me too! Being so close to finding my mom must have triggered it.
God, you are such a...
As for Norville's plot, he and Gigi were planning on hanging out in her family cabin, but Daphne and Velma intrude, and eventually this leads Gigi into believing that Norville still has feelings for Velma. Again, I'll explain later.
The serial killer is near my cabin and you didn't tell me? The hottest remaining girl at the school?
I wasn't expecting you to be here. Also, for what it's worth, Daphne is technically hotter. You just have a mildly better personality.
What an asshole!
And as for Fred's plot, he's chilling with the brains of the girls that were presumably murdered in the previous episodes in the mad scientist lab because he got kidnapped in the last episode. The whole bullshit with Velma, Norville, Daphne, and Gigi constantly blaming each other for the situation they were in was annoying. This episode made me hate both Daphne and Velma simultaneously, and it's because of Velma's possessive, manipulative nature and Daphne still falling for Velma because she loves feeling wanted. And that's due to her abandonment issues.
I know you're possessive, Velma, but I've always said it's one of my favorite parts of our friendship.
Said? Said to who? Was it Gigi? I'll kill her.
Yes, I love that.
What?
That's a turn on for you? What the fuck? You find this selfish, manipulative bitch's possessive nature attractive? I mean, I know you're still going through your abandonment issues, but I'm pretty sure a therapist would tell you that if the person you love is manipulative, possessive, or does horrible shit like reading your journal out to everybody in the crowd, hit you with a cane, or even worse, manipulate you into thinking that they have anxiety just so they can keep you all to their self, then the relationship you have is not healthy. But I forgot to mention, this show doesn't like therapy. They made fun of it constantly in the 3rd episode.
Your dad is a high school guidance counselor, the lowest form of therapist. He's worse than the free therapy app I downloaded that's obviously Russian spyware. See, your dad is worse for teen mental health than waist trainers.
Sure, but therapy isn't just a great way for therapists to remodel their kitchens.
According to her own journal, Daphne is so messed up that she has a daily session with our school guidance counselor, Lamont, to discuss her issues.
God, you are such a...
Man, if my older sister saw this, she would be fucking pissed. Also, this exchange confuses me. Daphne and Velma realize that they suck at being friends, so Velma recommends, I shit you not, that they should be girlfriends.
Then maybe we're both too messed up to be friends. It's clearly not working.
I think you're right. So maybe it's time we try being girlfriends.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that makes total fucking sense. We're both toxic, awful, disgusting people, so we should definitely be in a romantic relationship together. You know what? Because of this exchange, I hate Daphne and Velma even more than I did before.
Fuck both of y'all motherfuckers! A big fuck you to you, and a big fuck you to you!
Fuck them both. I don't even care anymore. And as mentioned before, it seems like Norville has a crush on Velma. Again. Even though he really shouldn't, because not only is she dating Daphne now, but she doesn't care about him in the slightest. So I don't know why he's constantly falling for this unlikable butterball. The only part of the episode that didn't make me want to gouge my eyes out was Fred's plot. But even then, nothing happens. The only thing that happens is that Fred goes back to being a douche again.
Krista, you hooked up with Fred? Fred said you broke up.
Babies, hey, Freddy can explain.
And can you explain how you also hooked up with me, Fred? What?
I'm so tired. I'm so tired of all of this.
This show just doesn't like character development, does it? Another thing to note is that Velma's mother comes straight out of nowhere to save Velma. Boo! Which is just weak as hell given the fact that this was a mystery that's been built up throughout the entire season. This is another insufferable episode. I can't stand this shit anymore. But it's okay, it's okay. We only have 2 more episodes left. Let's go.
Okay. Hey, no offense, but can we just let the actual doctor explain? Just being a white guy with a clipboard doesn't cut it anymore.
God, you're so unlikable.
Velma discovers that her mother has amnesia, so as a result, she can't tell them who the kidnapper was. Jesus Christ, another amnesia episode? For fuck's sake, they're just scraping the bottom of the barrel, aren't they? So Velma does everything in her power to make sure her mother remembers within 72 hours. After that time limit, she won't be able to remember. Jesus Christ, they even have a time limit until... What the fuck? And the way Velma attempts to get her mother to remember is by fooling her into believing that nothing's changed. Even though a lot of things have changed. And like in every single episode so far, Norville is forced in the middle of this bullshit because Velma is trying to cover up the fact that her father had a baby with the waitress. Okay, what's her name again? I honestly forgot. And while that's going on, Fred and Daphne's reputations are in the toilet. So they decide to act like a couple, for the 3rd time, so they can be popular again. Eventually this leads Fred's mother forcing Daphne to keep the relationship going before she calls it off. The only reason why I'm scoring this episode higher is because shitty things happen to Velma and it's awesome. I get this feeling of schadenfreude whenever she suffers. After blaming his father for being the murderer, even though he's innocent, Norville finally cuts ties with Velma once and for all.
And I wanted you to finish the headline about me for the paper. Which, did you? Because I couldn't help but notice you had time for a board game.
God, you are such a...
I put you above everything in my life. But I draw the line at my family. If our situations were reversed, you have left me for dead after my first hallucination. You're a bad friend, and you look terrible in orange. An elf is a luminous spirit, and a dwarf is a hairy oaf. But most importantly, they are not friends, and neither are we.
And as if that wasn't bad enough, while they're at the party, Velma witnesses Fred and Daphne kissing reluctantly. So that's just double points right there. And then Velma's dad admits to Velma's mom that he had a baby with the waitress. Okay, seriously, what is her name? And then finally, it's revealed that Velma's mother was the murderer. Even though that doesn't make any goddamn sense, but the next episode will expand on this a little bit more. So in terms of enjoyment, this episode ranks pretty high on my list. But as for story and characters, I couldn't give less of a shit. The littlest bit of investment I had with these characters is dead. Let's just get to the last episode. I want to be done with this.
Hey, Angela Lansbury, or whoever is in charge up there now, please don't let me die today.
You should have canceled this shit after 7 episodes. Velma doesn't believe that her mother was the killer, so she obviously has to get to the bottom of this, and needs to hurry because her mother is sentenced to death. So she decides to get herself arrested to talk to her, and it's revealed that her mother was hypnotized. Eventually Daphne comes into play, and shows her a pocket watch that belongs to Fred's family. So they go back to the lab again, but before she goes there, Velma discovers that Norville is switching schools.
Hip hip hooray.
Thank fucking God. And then eventually, later in the episode, it's revealed that the killer was Fred's mother this whole time.
No way.
And the reason why she did all of this was that she wanted to use the Scooby Project to find a brain that she could inject into Fred because she knows that he's going to take over the family business one day. And she attempts to switch Velma's brain with Fred's because she wants a much more intelligent person to be the heir. And I need you to hear this dialogue.
I am so sick of rich guys like you, not only not realizing how much is handed to them, but still thinking they're the victims when they mess everything up because of their lazy entitlement and fragile egos.
Remember this dialogue. Make sure you etch it into your goddamn brain, cause I'm gonna bring this up later.
No, Fred! I only said those things to rile you up! I mean, yes, I feel that way.
I so wish he'd actually shoot her at this point.
I mean, yes, I feel that way, but...
But of course, the show has to praise her for having these warped points of view, as Fred goes on to thank her for it.
No, I'm glad you said it, Velma. Only friends tell each other the truth, and I'm proud to call you a friend.
You know what? I'm speeding through this. Fred saves both Daphne and Velma and tries to confront his mother, only for him to get kidnapped. Velma and Daphne kiss for the second time.
Fucking why? Ugh.
Norville comes out of nowhere, even though he recently moved, and then he kills Fred's mom out of self-defense. And then Velma twerks for no reason at all. Jesus Christ, this show is so bad. And then everything goes back to normal. Well, not completely. You see, there's a bit of tension going on in the group. Fred's pissed off at Norville for killing his mother, Daphne's pissed off that Norville said he loved Velma, and Norville's pissed off at both of them. The only person that gets a happy ending is Velma. She found her mother, solved the case, and ends up being the hero. And that's what this whole season feels like. Everything just bends to Velma's will because she's the main character. I swear to God, the second she said this in the first episode...
My name is Velma Dinkley, and this is my origin story. I've decided to finally share the bone-chilling events that drove me to assemble the greatest team of spooky mystery solvers ever. Yeah, it was me, not Fred and his weird sex fan. This is my story, told my way.
I should have known that the whole story would bend in her favor. And she has the goddamn nerve to talk down to people about high privilege and self-entitlement, even though she's a... Trust me guys, I want to blow my load right now, but I'll discuss my problems with Velma later. As season finales go, this ending was extremely forced and rushed. Everything happens at breakneck speed. You can't get a moment to breathe because they're just cramming everything at last minute. It's like the Rise of Skywalker all over again. And some moments in this episode felt really forced. The worst one out of all of them was Velma telling Norville via voicemail that she loves him, which is completely out of the blue. They try to justify this by showing her listening to his voicemails earlier, but she's never liked him in that way, let alone loved him. Despite Velma and Daphne's relationship being toxic, this is something I would buy. I wouldn't approve or care for it, but it's something I would buy. This is completely forced and only done for the sake of making a rift between the group so the show gets renewed for a second season.
I'm so tired.
There were some things I didn't go over, like Fred making the mystery machine or Daphne trying to work with Fred's mom, and that's because I don't give a shit about these characters anymore. And honestly, they feel more like background characters in this episode. And that's because they are. It's mostly focused on Velma like always. They're just a bunch of bitches that are only there for the sake of praising Velma, sucking her dick, or being her slave. There you go, I did every single episode and I gave you my thoughts on all of them. Let's wrap this up. God, this was extremely exhausting. This was probably the most painful video I have ever done in my life, and I watched every episode of Family Guy. Where do I even begin? Let's talk about how the show's tone is completely out of place. It wants to be dark and gritty, but they forgot that the Scooby-Doo IP has been pretty lighthearted and goofy for the most part. I'm not saying that Scooby-Doo can't be dark, because Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated and even Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island did that very well, but this show just doesn't do it well at all. It was embarrassing and pathetic, and it's honestly laughable that Mindy Kaling went on record saying that she created this show out of her love for Scooby-Doo and animation as a whole. Actions speak louder than words. I forgot to mention that there's unneeded nudity in this show. They only show nudity twice throughout the entire season, and you guys are disgusting for doing that. Because these are minors, you sick fuck. The story itself isn't engaging because it wants to focus on character interactions and character relationships, but because the characters are so unlikable, I don't care. Not to mention the pacing in this show is terrible. Things happen way too quickly because they're focusing on multiple plots at once. Here's the thing, I have ADHD, and there's another YouTuber named Shoeonhead who also has ADHD. So if people with ADHD, like myself and Shoeonhead, can't keep up with your shitty story, that's a problem. And Jesus Christ, the dialogue in this show is awful. It's filled with nothing but pop culture references, blatant observations, breaking the fourth wall, telling not showing, referencing shit from Twitter for no reason, and just fucking awful exchanges between the characters.
Normally, origin stories are about tall, handsome guys struggling with the burden of being handed even more power. I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shows.
Wow, after hearing that, I not only feel emotionally hooked, I understand the stakes of your journey, Velma.
Oh, sorry I'm not a drunk on the verge of losing custody like every other woman solving murders these days.
You know what 420 is, right?
Yeah, it's code for adults who still watch cartoons. Exactly. I spit truth without a filter, like every comedian before #MeToo.
But if the kids in every teen show ever can get through a brush with a deranged serial killer, so can I.
Sure, but therapy isn't just a great way for therapists to remodel their kitchens.
I have to apologize. She kicked me so hard my tubes are now tied.
Yes, but you hurt her feelings, which is way worse these days.
And the hot girls are distracting because you recently came out and get too turned on to focus? Got it, copied.
Well, I also prefer inner beauty. And yes, up until right now, I found you irresistible, but now I just find you gross.
I would, but all I can think of right now is the gender pay gap. Is it funny? Women make 20% less than men, and women of color even less? I can't stop laughing.
Scooby? And wait, what did Scooby do?
But also, Jinkies is written in your mother's handwriting. She was just here.
Jinkies!
Okay, now you're totally trying to make it a thing.
Holy crap! No wonder men are so desperate to hold onto their power. This is the easiest shit ever.
I know you're possessive, Velma, but I've always said it's one of my favorite parts of our friendship.
Said? Said to who? Was it Gigi? I'll kill her.
Yes, I love that.
Hey, no offense, but can we just let the actual doctor explain? Just being a white guy with a clipboard doesn't cut it anymore. I am so sick of rich guys like you, not only not realizing how much is handed to them, but still thinking they're the victims when they mess everything up because of their lazy entitlement and fragile egos.
Okay, so the tone is off and the dialogue is atrocious, but at least the jokes can save this, right?
Well, no, not technically.
There are little to no jokes in this show. At least none that I could spot. And even when I managed to find some jokes, it's just horribly unfunny. I've sat through modern Family Guy cutaway gags that were funnier than this shit. Not to mention, finding a joke in this show is like trying to find Waldo in a Where's Waldo book. It's goddamn difficult to do. And I forgot to mention this, but this show tries to tackle social commentary in some episodes. Episodes where Velma acts like a dude, or where she tries to cover the popular girls as beauty, which I don't know why they did that. It just feels really forced. Another thing to mention is that this show does a terrible job at representing anxiety, they constantly make fun of therapy, and it gives a horrible message about relationships through Velma and Daphne, saying that if someone is possessive or does any of the following, you should give them a chance, which is fucking awful advice. The only thing of quality is the animation, but even then, the animation is not supposed to save a terrible story. It's like someone once said, a good story can save bad animation, but good animation cannot save a bad story. Okay, so there are no jokes in this show, but maybe the characters can salvage this. The only thing these characters made me want to do was bash my head against a brick wall. These characters are terrible. Either they're annoying, one-dimensional, unlikable, or some combination of all three. There is no good character in this show, and I think we should go through the characters one more time before I wrap this up. Norville is probably the least offensive character, but his whole shtick of being a simp to both Velma and Gigi gets old real quick.
Okay, Norville, I understand that for some reason you've chosen Gigi, a beautiful girl who puts out, over your angry friend, but I have a clue about my mom, and I can't research it without you. Please. I'm running out of time for my mom to remember who the serial killer is, so I need you to break into your mom's office, change my grades, and print me a new report card.
Wait, what?
So are you done now? Can you do it? And if I win, Norville does whatever I say forever.
And do I get to weigh in?
No!
You're your own man.
Damn straight. And just real quick, when do you need me to have your pants mended by?
Now. But lunch will be fine, I guess.
Look what they've done to my boy!
It just feels like that's his whole purpose throughout the season. It's either he's the typical nerd character who becomes an unlikable dick later on, or he's a whipping boy for Velma or Gigi. And in those rare moments where I thought Norville was finally gonna stand up for himself, he just goes back to being a simp again.
That's because a man answers his phone when he damn well feels like answering his phone, Lamont.
Well, Gigi almost died. She was stung by a bee digging her pants out of the garbage at school, and the nurse was out of adrenaline shots.
Oh, no.
But that's what I love about you. Oh, who am I kidding? Of course I'll go to Fogfest with you.
But I really hurt Gigi's feelings by ignoring your calls, and I will do anything to make it right. I put you above everything in my life. But I draw the line at my family. If our situations were reversed, you would have left me for dead after my first hallucination. An elf is a luminous spirit, and a dwarf is a hairy oaf. But most importantly, they are not friends, and neither are we.
I got your VM! Voicemail! And I love you too!
Sure, Norville might not be the worst character, but he certainly isn't a good one. And most importantly, he's a simp. And I hate simps. Fred is another character that's just annoying for the most part. He's just a dumb idiot that tries to prove to everybody that he's not a dumb idiot. And then he becomes a male feminist for a little bit, which isn't funny.
I would, but all I can think of right now is the gender pay gap. Is it funny? Women make 20% less than men, and women of color even less? I can't stop laughing.
What a moron.
I mean, there's a setup of him wanting to live up to his family's image, but it's not explored that well. And in that rare moment where I thought he was finally going through his own character arc, he ends up going back to being an unlikable asshole again. So yeah, he's not that good of a character either. Daphne is the typical mean bitch archetype that has a love boner for Velma for no other reason than let's just force LGBT representation. Like Fred, she did have an interesting story on trying to find her parents, even if they ripped this off from Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. But once that story's wrapped up, she basically ends up being a love interest to Velma for half the season. Another thing I don't understand is why they keep forcing Fred and Daphne to be a couple for some of these episodes, because they break up with each other each and every single time. And now she and Velma are back to square one because she's pissed off at Velma for saying that she loved Norville.
I love you too, Norville.
What? Norville?
Daphne! I love you, Daphne!
You dumb fuck.
Even though she kissed Fred in episode 9. What a dumbass hypocrite. Before we get to the main problem of this show, let's briefly talk about the side characters. Velma's dad is the typical dumbass father that doesn't really care about his daughter until he eventually does. Sophie, yes, I just remembered her name, is like every other dumbass millennial. Velma's mother is a plot device that acts as Velma's entire motivation for the entire season. Daphne's adoptive parents are incompetent police officers. Daphne's biological parents are a bunch of criminals. Fred's parents are abusive twats that don't care for or have much faith in their son. Norville's parents are a bunch of pushovers, even though one's the principal and the other's a guidance counselor. There are the popular girls that get their brains pulled out. There's that girl Olive I mentioned earlier, Gigi, who's Norville's girlfriend for a little bit, and that's about it. There are probably other characters I forgot to mention, but it's either I don't care about them or I don't remember them. Now finally, let's get to the main of the hour, Velma herself. Velma is easily the worst element of this show, and it's because she is a selfish, racist, dismissive, judgmental, narcissistic, shitty fucking person. She only cares about herself, and she doesn't care about anyone else's feelings, and never is that more apparent than her relationship with Norville and Daphne. She forces Norville to drop whatever he's doing so he can focus on her problems, and she gets so pissed off at Daphne for hanging out with the popular girls instead of her, even though she was the one who cut ties with Daphne in the first place because she was so focused on her mother's disappearance. And she treats Fred like shit too, even though he tried to be a better person. Keyword, tried. And I have to say, Mindy Kaling's voice really makes this character even more unlikable due to the smugness of her performance. For a character like Disgust, it works, but for Velma Dinkley, not so much. And what sucks about this character is that for some reason, the show is forcing us to sympathize and root for her. Like, oh, Velma may be a piece of shit, but she has panic attacks and hallucinations because she misses her mother so much. Not to mention, she's a social outcast that gets picked on and bullied at school. Don't you sympathize with her?
And the answer to that is, fuck off.
No. No, I don't. In fact, whenever she gets her ass whooped, I'm laughing my ass off and I'm having a good time. And guess what? I'm not the only one. People on Twitter and TikTok laugh at Velma for being a joke. Twitter and TikTok. And if you don't believe me that the show is trying to get you to sympathize with her, literally in the first episode, she says this when she's having her panic attack.
Why? I'm weird and no one likes me.
I put together this little collage of Velma's best moments. Enjoy.
I wasn't expecting such an enlightened answer from such
A bitch.
Velma? What the hell? You almost killed me.
Guess I didn't try hard enough. Yes! And I don't want to do our math homework together. Just email me your answers like always.
I know you think I'm a huge bitch who ditched you to be cool.
What? That's so not true. Fred's a rich white guy with a tiny dong. He did it. But also that he was just another entitled rich guy who might kill someone because he has a tiny dong. Daphne is so messed up that she has a daily session with our school guidance counselor, Lamont, to discuss her issues.
Now, are there any more questions?
Yeah, I have one. How come no one ever cared this much about my missing mom? Well, I also prefer inner beauty. And yes, up until right now, I found you irresistible. But now I just find you gross. And if I win, Norville does whatever I say forever.
And do I get to weigh in?
No!
Okay, it's okay.
Calm down. I'm here, and all I want to do is help you.
Really?
Yes. Immediately after you do me a huge favor.
You're saying my mom was taken by the ghost of your mom? Really? I thought only idiots and B-list actresses believed in ghosts. Why wouldn't you tell Velma? That, super cool and attentive bestie you mentioned. Freak out? I'm famously chill about everything. Why would I care if the night after I learned you were obsessed with someone, you want to play Terry Richardson with Olin? Said? Said to who? Was it Gigi? I'll kill her.
Yes, I love that.
So are you done now? Can you do it? And I wanted you to finish the headline about me for the paper, which, did you? Because I couldn't help but notice you had time for a board game.
Velma needs us.
The only thing I need is to kick your ass for kissing Fred. I am so sick of rich guys like you, not only not realizing how much is handed to them, but still thinking they're the victims when they mess everything up because of their lazy entitlement and fragile egos.
You can't die!
Why? I'm weird and no one likes me.
You serious?
Another thing is that for some reason, they try to give her these character building moments. When I saw these scenes for the first time, I got the impression that maybe Velma would start to reflect upon herself and she'll be a better person. But nope, she's still the same selfish asshole she was in the first episode. And that's another problem. Velma isn't developing throughout this season. She's still the same selfish bitch she was from the season premiere all the way to the season finale. And when the main character isn't developing, it's a lot harder to be invested in your show. Okay, it's time to wrap this up. I've gone on about this for way too long. My biggest problem with this show is that it doesn't feel like Scooby-Doo at all. It just feels like the executives are looking at all the popular trends in modern animation and deciding to cram all of that within one show. And I hate to say it, but all these other shows and movies are doing what this show's doing way better. Do you want black representation? Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Static Shock, Fresh Prince, The Boondocks, Black Dynamite, The Proud Family, and even The Cleveland Show got you covered. Do you want LGBT representation? Arcane, The Owl House, Steven Universe, and Harley Quinn got your back. And guess what? They have good storytelling if you're interested in that too. Do you want meta humor? Watch the first 2 seasons of Rick and Morty, or even The Amazing World of Gumball. Do you want a show that makes commentary on what's going on in today's society? South Park has been doing that job for 26 fucking years. Do you want a show that handles gore or dark subject matter with maturity and grace? Invincible and BoJack Horseman are a few streaming services away. Do you want an old cartoon that has a darker and edgier feel, but still has some fucking respect for the source material? Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated is right here. What I'm trying to say is that this is a show that no one should watch, and when the second season comes out, don't give it the time of day, please. And as for my overall feelings towards this show, now I know how the fanboys feel when they see a beloved IP get butchered and destroyed. It's been a while since I've watched anything Scooby-Doo, and I didn't think this would piss me off this much. Well, guess what? It did. Fuck HBO Max, fuck Mindy Kaling, and fuck Velma. So, what do you guys think of Velma? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Tell me in the comment section below. And, yeah, I'll catch you guys later.